Hello, welcome to the grid method. Now, this is maths for, I know the grid method is taught in year 3, round about beginning of the second term. So if you're watching this live, it's round about now. And it's a really handy method to learn how to do multiplying bigger numbers, both 2 digits by 1 digit, and you can also do 2 digits by 2 digits, which grown-ups you will know as long multiplication. So it's a slightly different way of doing that. It's usually a kind of stepping stone. You do the grid method first and then you do the formal column methods. So let's get this nailed first. This is very much a sort of year 3, 4 thing. And if you're in year 5 and 6, then don't worry, we've got long multiplication and division with factors coming up for you. So let's get going with the grid method. It is called the grid method because we use a grid. But what do we put into that grid? Let's do some examples. Right, so first of all, we're going to do 2 digit by 1 digit. Nice and easy, 48 times 3. Now, in order to do the grid method properly, we really need to understand partitioning, okay? And if you're not sure about partitioning, go back and have a little look at partitioning. I might even do a video on it. So partitioning is splitting numbers into tens and units, or even hundreds, tens and units. So 48 can be partitioned into a 40 and an 8. Good. And the 3 is just a 1 digit. It's a unit all by himself, so he's okay. He doesn't need partitioning at the moment. We then draw our grid like this, and it looks a bit like a noughts and crosses board. And we are going to put our 40 and our 8 across the top. 40 and our 8 there, and the 3 goes here. Now, into these grids, children, you will be usually quite familiar with the concept of a multiplication grid, where you take the number at the top and the number at the side, see where they meet, and write the answer to the multiplication there. So in this box here, we're going to have 40 times 3. And a really quick way of doing 40 times 3 is to hide the 0 or take the 0 off in your head, do 4 times 3, which is 12, and then just remember to pop the 0 back on. You must remember to pop the 0 back on. Little bit of a disaster if you just leave that as a 12. Big difference between 12 and 120. So 40 times 3 is 120. And then in this box here, we're going to do 8 times 3. 8 times 3 is 24, so we put our 24 in there. Now, I haven't left myself much room there, but the last thing we do is we have to add up these two answers. 120 and 24 together should be able to count up in tens in your head. 120, add 20 is 140, add the 4 equals 144. Okay, so that is the grid method in its most basic form. It's quite fun. It's a little bit different. For grown-ups, you won't have learned this before, so it's good to see how it works. I'm going to do one more example of that so that the children can practice it, but I'm going to choose a slightly bigger number now. So we're going to do 96 times 5. And I'm going to give myself space to write the answers over here. So my grid is here. Times sign up here to remind ourselves to do our multiplication. And the 96 is partitioned into 90 and 6. And the 5 goes down here. Right, so in here we have 5 times 90 or 90 times 5, because remember, multiplication is commutative, which means we can do it both ways. Same as adding, but division and subtraction are not. So you can do these either way. So 9 times 5 is 45. Remember to put the 0 back on. And then 5 times 6 is 30. And we can add those together. 450 add 30 is 480. Okay, well done, everybody. Have a little go at practicing some of those. You can make up the numbers up here. Try not to go over 100. Well, I'm going to show you what to do if you can go over 100. But just keep your numbers 2 digits and 1 digit to start with. Then we go on to 2 digit and 2 digit. So we could have 37 times 24. Now for this one, our grid is going to get ever so slightly bigger because we're going to have a 30 and a 7 across the top, and we're going to partition this into a 20 and a 4. So we need 2 boxes across the top and 2 boxes coming down. And then we need to do some adding as well. So there's a nice grid, a little bit bigger. We've got another row underneath from the other one. 37, just like before, partitioned into a 30 and a 7. The 24 is partitioned and it goes down this side. Good. Now, instead of just getting 2 sums, we now need to fill in all 4 of these boxes. So here, we've got 2 times 3 is 6, but this time we took a 0 off there and a 0 off there. So 20 times 30 is 600 with 2 zeros on, because if you hide the 0 there and you hide the 0 there, you've got to put both of those zeros back on to your 6. Then we can do 20 times 7. 2 times 7 is 14 with my 0 back on. You've got to remember these zeros. And then 3 times 4 is 12 with the 0 back on. And 4 times 7 is 28. Don't put an extra 0 on there by mistake. Now we've got to do some adding up. I'm actually going to switch colours because it might be a bit easier for you to see if the numbers aren't all crashing into each other. So 600 and 140. Let's add that row up first. So that's 740. We can do this in our heads, but if you need to write them down, that's absolutely fine. 120 add 28 is 148. Now we do, oh, what a terribly wonky line. We do an adding sum here. Okay, and again, you can take that out and write it down as a column addition over here if you prefer. But I'm going to try and keep it nice and tidy down here. So units first, or ones first. 0 add 8 is 8. 4 add 4 is 8. And 7 add 1 is 8. Look at that, 888. That's a nice number, isn't it? So that's how we multiply with the grid method, doing 2 digits by 2 digits. You can expand it further and do hundreds, tens and units. You need to add in another column here. It gets to be quite a lot of adding up with that. And in our next session, I'm going to show you how to do multiplication using the formal column method, which is what parents will be used to doing, and long multiplication using the column method as well. So this isn't the only way to do timesing. And once you've learnt both ways, then you can choose whether you want to do this way or whether you want to do the column method. And really, it doesn't matter which one you choose. They both give you the right answer if you do them correctly. So don't worry about it. If you don't like this method, you can use the short multiplication method. If you don't like the short multiplication method, you can use the grid method. It really doesn't matter which way around you do it. Okay, let me know if you've got any questions and I'll see you soon. Thanks for joining.